Welcome in everybody to the 10th video in my 2024 Rookie Prospect Profile series. Today we're taking a look at my Rookie 112 in one quarterback leagues and 2.02 in Superflex leagues. Also my RB3 in this class, Tennessee running back Jaylen Wright, who I think has the ability to be the best running back from this class when we look back on it in 3 to 5 years. Taking a look at his college career, Wright joined Tennessee in 2021 and was the immediate RB2 behind Jabari Small and technically Hendon Hooker as well, rushing for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns on 85 carries, so a moderate start to his career at Tennessee. Wright then followed that up with a strong 2022 where he forced the committee backfield with Small, rushing for nearly 900 yards and 10 touchdowns on 146 carries, and was a big part of Tennessee having their best season as a program in 20 years. And then in 2023, Wright asserted himself as the team's RB1, rushing for over 1,000 yards, but only 4 touchdowns on 137 carries, and he did also add 150 yards on 22 receptions through the air. So the team wasn't as good in 2022, and he lost some touchdowns to Joe Milton, but it was his first 1,000-yard season and another improved season as well. So let's get into the analytics, and if you've watched these videos before, you may be familiar with my marker system, which is simply a series of checkboxes or baselines that I want players to hit based on what previously successful NFL players had coming out of college. And at the running back position, I have 10 markers that are checking for various production and athleticism metrics with a final adjustment at the end based on draft capital. And currently, Jaylen Wright is grading out with 5 markers hit, which is very solid before the NFL draft. And if Wright is able to sneak into round 2, he will then go to 6 total markers hit, which is right where Kenneth Walker was, as well as Carlos Hyde and Matt Forte, and in the range of Tyjae Spears, Brian Robinson, and Alvin Kamara if he does end up in round 3. To me, the most intriguing part of Wright's analytical profile through this lens is how close he was to hitting 3 more markers. He was 3 receptions off from hitting my receptions baseline. He was less than 120 yards away from hitting my early production baseline and was just 5 pounds off from eclipsing a 30 BMI and hitting on that marker as well. So just shy of hitting a Jonathan Brooks or Zach Charbonnet level of prospect with 1 or 2 more markers hit, and just that close to being a more upper echelon prospect like a Javonte Williams, J.K. Dobbins, Maurice Jones-Drew type of player coming out of college. And for an RB3 in a class overall, that is pretty good company to be in or to have that type of upside heading into the NFL. And when you watch him on tape, you see a lot of really, really good stuff that gets you excited for him in fantasy. The first thing you notice is his sub 4.4 speed. It is all over his tape, and a big reason why he was second in the NCAA in runs of 10 plus yards per attempt among running backs with 125 or more carries. He also has incredible burst and acceleration to be able to get into the second level and then take off from there, and then you're never catching him. He is in the end zone. His lateral movement is also amazing, and his vision is next level, which is also why in 2023 he ranked 14th in missed tackles forced per attempt, 9th in PFF's overall elusive rating, and ranked 3rd in yards after contact per attempt. He is an incredible runner and also an excellent receiver, which baffles me as to why he only had 30 receptions in 3 years in college. He is a receiving weapon, and Tennessee would actually use him as a receiver at times instead of just a pass catcher out of the backfield. So that is definitely an area to his game that can be utilized more in the NFL as an actual receiving threat. To me, Wright is another back in the mold of an RB1A who needs that ground and pounder as a complement. Think Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. Wright's upside is an explosive playmaker on the ground and through the air, and his efficiency is going to be his moneymaker. And don't get me wrong, I would love to see Jaylen Wright as a workhorse RB1, and I think he would be able to handle that workload just fine, but we have seen examples of backs in this kind of mold who gain more work and their efficiency and potency just drop really hard. Alvin Kamara with and without Mark Ingram over the years is a good example of that. Or look at DeAndre Swift in Detroit with Jamal Williams versus in Philadelphia as the only running back losing goal line carries to Jalen Hurts. I think the worst possible outcome for Wright is that he gets typecast in the NFL as like a satellite or third down back like the NFL did to Giovanni Bernard, Duke Johnson, Jarrett McKinnon. Hopefully not Tyjae Spears, but I'm not too sure. So if a team drafts Wright to fill that role, then we're constantly going to be disappointed by his usage in fantasy output because he can be so much more. It's like watching Jaylen Warren rip off a 20-yard run and then the Steelers hand it off to Najee Harris for a 1-yard loss on the very next play. That type of frustrating usage is a possibility for Jaylen Wright. My ultimate hope is that Jaylen Wright ends up on the Chargers on day 2. Even if it's not in the second round, if they still draft him 69 overall in in the 3rd round to be that 1A complement with Gus Edwards as potentially the replacement for Austin Eckler, that is a dream landing spot. That is a situation that would solidify Wright in the late 1st round of rookie drafts for me, because we know the Chargers want to run now with Harbaugh and Roman. We know that Gus Edwards is a fine grinder, but really nothing more. And Wright could literally just be Jahmyr Gibbs on that offense with a big receiving workload and an expanding rushing workload as his rookie season goes on. It is literally perfect for everybody involved, and coincidentally aligns with both my comp and Lance Zierlein's comp for Jaylen Wright, mine being Ryan Matthews with 1T and Lance's being Melvin Gordon. In a very similar vein, I think the New York Giants make a ton of sense too, one pick behind the LA Chargers at 70 overall, or in the mid-second too, that's fine as well. But we know what Devin Singletary is, and he has familiarity with being replaced by more electric day 2 back before, so the Giants could be another team where Wright can come in as the 1B and work his way into the 1A by the end of 2024 and get good volume on the ground and through the air. Also in a similar vein, Vegas would work too in the early 3rd round as a team where Wright would have an opportunity as the RB1B immediately, and I would even argue should be the RB1A on that offense over Jahmyr White. But this is the Chargers situation all over again, just on a worse team with a worse offense and a worse quarterback. But hey, if he's getting volume and receiving work, beggars can't be choosers here with landing spots in the NFL. And then obviously the Dallas Cowboys would be fantastic for just about any running back, but 2 other teams that are of interest to me for Jaylen Wright are the Arizona Cardinals and actually the New Orleans Saints, both as decent plays in 2024 as more of the RB1B, but more as long-term plays starting in 2025 where James Conner can leave in free agency and Wright takes over as the main RB1 there in Arizona, or Alvin Kamara, who is extremely cuttable next offseason. Like, they would save $19 million by cutting him next year. So you plug in Wright, he would then be the 1-for-1 replacement of Alvin Kamara in that Saints offense. And I'm not at all worried about Jamal Williams or Kendre Miller stealing touches away from Wright with Kamara gone. So those are 2 spots that maybe seem kind of out of left field, but have moderate interest to me if he doesn't land in one of the more premier landing spots. So to me, Wright has immense upside for fantasy football, arguably the second most upside behind Jonathan Brooks from this 2024 running back class, just because of the type of player that he is. I would not at all be shocked if in 5 years we look back on this class and say Jaylen Wright ended up being the most valuable pick from the class because he was so cheap and so good for fantasy. Kind of like we did with the 2017 class in Alvin Kamara, another smaller-ish, highly efficient receiving weapon, but also underutilized running back coming out of college. Just please, NFL, do not ruin Jaylen Wright in a satellite role. Give him the opportunity to lead your backfield and let us enjoy him for fantasy football for many, many years.